So I'm Amber.
And I'm Jessie.
And this is Glowing in Tech.
Powered by Coding Black Females.
And here we are, part 2. We're still with Tanya Powell, the co-CTO of Coding Black Females. And we're going to delve into her tech topic in 10.
Yes, so Tanya's going to be talking to us about behavioural-driven development. And you're going to give us a hopefully 10-minute introduction.
It might not be 10 minutes. Oh, we'll see.
Give it your best shot, Tanya.
So this was, my very, very first proper technical talk was about BDD because the reason why I did it because it was so like user-centric. Mm-hmm. It wasn't necessarily just, I'm trying to get my own slides up. These slides are like 7 years old. I was going through them this morning and was like, this is some bad Java. Don't ever show anyone this ever again. And the reason why I want to do this, it is so user-centric and it's about collaboration. It's not just about doing something that is technical. It's how do you collaborate between various stakeholders, so product, random users, QA and dev. Mm-hmm. So let me tell you a bit about BDD without going into song and dance. So BDD is an agile methodology to encourage collaboration between product, any other stakeholder, the QA, so quality assurance testers, whether it's manual or automated, and also the developer. So we start off with, it's got 3 stages to it. We start off by describing what the features should be, and you write some acceptance criteria. Yeah. And then we do our implementation, and then we automate this. When you have the acceptance criteria, you write it in stages where it's in plain English. You don't have to use a specific coding language. You don't even need to have a DSL, so domain-specific language, in plain English, so anyone can come along and read and understand what this feature should be. And you write it as given the scenario name, when some type of user action happens, then what is the result of that action. And with those 3 steps alone, anyone should understand what this feature should do. And it's a great way for, especially for juniors, because it used to help me a lot doing BDD, how to go into sprint demo. How do I explain to my various audience of various different stakeholders what I've just implemented? So instead of just being like technical, my audience, I don't know who's going to be in my audience. Yeah. So during sprint demo, I'll be like, given this is the name of the scenario, when this happens, blah, 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 then I should expect this to be the result. So whenever I'm doing a sprint demo or explaining something to different stakeholders, I have the BDD like framework in my head. And even when I'm writing stories now for our devs to do, because we're a small team, so I still have to write all the user stories and all the tickets and break things down, I will have acceptance criteria and be like, given, when, then. And then when we've decided on this acceptance criteria, the 3 of us, in my little story here, we've got a dev, we've got a product manager, and we've got a QA. Just imagine this triangle of perfecta. We should all agree on the acceptance criteria. The dev should go and implement things based on that criteria. And the QA can then go and write these scenarios in tests and do the functional tests to make sure that what we as developers we've developed the feature, the functionality based on that behavior. So imagine we're making a calculator. We've all used calculators, right? Yeah. And what I've done this in my life. I've completely misunderstood a user story. No, I've wish there was acceptance criteria. So imagine we've got a calculator. I'm going to calculate 2 numbers. I don't know, 3 plus 3. And we might assume that we're going to give back a number, the number 6. What if the behavior is actually to return the word SIX? Mm-hmm. Now, in a typical user story, we might completely miss that. And I'm like, but I'm giving you back the number 6. I'm like, that's not what you asked for. And suddenly my implementations changed dramatically. I'm not just adding 2 numbers together. I'm now going to find out what that word is in what language as well. English, Mandarin, I don't know. It's changing the functionality a lot. But if we had that collaboration to begin with, so our little trifecta of dev, QA, and product, if we had decided that and had the acceptance criteria to begin with, someone could be writing the functional test for that. Someone could be writing the implementation for that. we are all in agreement of what it should be, and then we can continue. And we all know what's going to happen. We're going to build the best product at this point. There are now a bunch of tools that can help us with that. We got Cucumber. Cucumber is like really famous for BDD. And I actually spoke at one of their conferences, like the very first conference I went to, which was fun. And I got to speak about, it was literally an introduction to BDD. I just reread this deck I did at Code Bar centuries ago. And everyone in the audience understood it, which was mind-blowing as well. I was like, what? But I've just distracted myself. What was I talking about?
You were talking about if there's the synergy between the product, QA and engineering, then you won't have that miscommunication where the developer delivers something different to what the product manager expected.
Exactly that. And then also QA knows what to test as well. Because I've had this before when the QA come back, I'm like, you didn't think about any edge cases. This is not what you're supposed to be implementing. What have you done? And I'm like, oh, does I just not understand?
Yeah.
Like, this is what we're talking about on the train.
Yeah, I'm really struggling with this, like having to figure out exactly how, like the test scenarios and the kind of the negative paths that could happen.
Yeah. So I always, even if I don't use like a Cucumber, and Cucumber, you can use Cucumber with any languages and at any point in your testing as well. So you don't just have to do it during the initial like unit test or the TD part. You can have BDD towards the end for end-to-end testing, for example, or acceptance testing. So I know you can hook Cucumber into Cypress for JavaScript, for example, if you're doing end-to-end testing. Or I think Python's got its own BDD framework called Behave. So it's literally testing the behavior of your functionality.
Okay, cool.
And it's the user behavior because, listen, at the end of the day, we're always building things for people to use.
Yes, exactly.
Even if it is an API, someone's got to use it. It's a human that's going to use it.
Exactly.
So we're always building things for human and everyone's behavior is different. So let's start describing what we think, what we hope anyway, for users' behavior is going to be so we can start predicting, not predicting, but anticipating further issues and covering as many edge cases as possible. So you can use things such as Cucumber or Behave. And the lovely thing about tools like Cucumber and Behave is when you're writing, you're literally writing given, when, then. So it's the same acceptance criteria is what you're writing in the testing framework. So
I need to do this.
Exactly, it's really cool because a product manager can come along and they're not going to maybe understand the internals, like the body of it, but they can come along and see the scenario. I'm like, oh, I know what they're testing. I know what this bit is doing because it's written in plain English or plain mother language, not technical. Like, no, anyone can suddenly understand this. But okay, I get it. I know what you're trying to do here.
Yeah,
I know what this tiny bit of functionality is supposed to be doing.
Yeah,
got you. It's just common language. And I just love that it brings everyone together, and we have that collaboration. Everyone understands, and it reminds everyone we are a team. We're not by ourselves. We have to communicate, which is great because so many times I'm like, I wish I spoke to someone before I started implementing this because I've just done something very, very wrong.
Yeah,
and I've just wasted 3 weeks, and now I've got to do it all over again.
Yeah, and I think if you have that synergy from the beginning, it sets the tone for how you can then communicate when you are having to make decisions. Like, here's a case that the PM hasn't thought about. Let me go and ask them instead of trying to guess what they might have wanted it to be.
Yeah. And even if you don't have an opportunity to have the PM there, even if it's just you and a QA, if you don't have a QA, speak to someone else on your team and be like, can you act as this role today, please? Can you be, I'm a big fan of rubber ducking as well. Do you both know about rubber ducking?
Yes, but explain it for people
rubber ducking. So the concept is you get a rubber duck or an inanimate object and you speak out a problem to it. So as you're speaking out this problem, you're actually coming up with the solution as you're saying it out loud. As if I can't find something, I will literally call up a colleague and be like, can you be my rubber duck right now? Just sit in silence and speak this out to someone. And I've sold so many things. I'm like, I'm overthinking this. I'm over-engineering this.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've written like 55,000 lines of code and I'm like, this is all gibberish. Like, delete, start again.
sometimes that happens when I'm asking for help. So I'll be typing on Slack, like my problem, like, oh, like I know what to do now. Yeah. And like I just delete that message, implement it. Yeah. Like it's so helpful sometimes as well.
I sometimes have running conversations with people and they're not responding to me. I'm responding like they are, but I'm having a running conversation on Slack. And they're like, nice to see you solved it. I'm like, thank you for being there for me.
Thank you for the support.
Your support is appreciated.
Exactly.
Something else that you touched on that I never even thought of about BDD is using it to sprint demo. Because I sometimes struggle when you've spent so long on a technical thing, as technical solution, how do you demonstrate the value to the rest of the business and the intention behind why you've done something a certain way? So that's something I definitely want to do as well.
Always think given, when, it's like helped me so many times. And I'm like, how do I explain this? I'm like, scenario, given this, or even just like now that I'm in my role and like, I've got all the technical bits in my head, but I'm not going to be implementing it, right? I'm like, I need someone else to be implementing it. I'm like, how do I explain this? I'm like, I don't need to be overly complicated. Let me just give several scenarios. I'm like, this can help you understand. Or if I've got to talk to someone else, if I'm talking to my mum about something I'm working on, and she'll be like, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, mum, I was thinking about this algorithm today. Let me tell you about storage in the heap. And she's like, what are you talking about, Tanya? I'll be like, let me tell you a scenario. So given this thing happened, when that happened, she's like, oh yeah, cool, got it. I'm like, I'm just speaking plain mother language to you.
But then is there a way that you could overdo it where you could give too many scenarios, or is that more?
Yeah. You do have to find that balance. But I give as many as possible to begin with. Just write it down. Don't have to actually implement. Just write it down somewhere and then go through and be like, what is the priority? Mm-hmm. What has the most importance here? And just implement those.
So cool.
Amazing. Are we going to go to the tech tea now?
Yes.
Okay, amazing. Cool. So now we're on to it. Mm-hmm. What is the tech tea with Tanya?
I don't know if it's tech tea, but something that annoys me is bad documentation. Does my nut in. Not that I'm great at writing documentation. I am not. Hands up, terrible at writing it. But that's why I avoid doing it. Just assume what I've written makes sense. But bad documentation does my nut in. It drives me crazy because we are always building things for people to use.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, so many times I've gone to especially when I was doing front end only, and I'll go to a back end guy, but try to use your API. I feel like, yeah, it's good, isn't it? I'm like, I don't know. I feel like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't use it. Why not? I don't understand how to use your API.
I feel attacked.
Oh.
But I've done this as well. Because even like when you automate documentation, always read back as well. Because sometimes I remember when I used to just be in the back end team and I'm like, oh, and that's to automate it as well. Because I'm like, I'm terrible about documentation. Let me automate this. I was looking at what the automation tool had done and I'm like, this is gibberish. Mm-hmm. No one's going to understand this. What? I have to go back and refine this. It's a great starting point. But sometimes a good thing about documentation is I've done this. I've looked back and I'm like, oh, this is really complicated. Oh, so my implementation is really complicated. No one can use this. Only I understand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like it's a sanity check with your actual code.
It really, really is. But so I'm like, my API is amazing. I'm like, I can't use it. Why not? I don't understand how to plug into it. Because I don't understand your documentation. It's really complicated. I'm like, why do I have to pass 20 parameters in? I'm like, have you thought about maybe an SDK instead of an API? I'm like, why would I do that? Because the SDK, for what you want me to do, you're giving me 16 APIs. Each endpoint, I have to pass in 30 parameters. Maybe give me an SDK because it's a complete kit.
And what's an SDK?
So a software development kit. So it's literally everything for that particular service in one bit of functionality. So you'd have, usually with SDKs, you have lovely code examples. I'm like, how do I communicate with you? Mm-hmm. Here's an example. And I'm like, yes, it's a very simple, basic example. You don't usually have to pass in 1,000 parameters.
Yeah.
I don't have to be like, which endpoint's going to do that? And is it going to return this? And mate, that's not what I want to do. Hang on. And now I've got to call like 5 endpoints to get one bit of data that I want back. Huh? Why? What? So I'm like, maybe a whole kit instead of loads of different bits of a kit. Just combining it all together. That could be helpful, maybe. And then if you have the combined whole thing, it's more holistic and you have better documentation.
So what should good documentation do?
Plain English. I can't stress this enough. Reduced amount of jargon.
Yes.
Because you come back from holiday and you come to your computer and you're like, what's my password again?
Yes. Yes.
Documentation should be like that. Tell me, write a story. Even when I'm writing code, I have a clear beginning, middle and ending. Something I learned in primary school is a story. Take me on a journey. Don't have me like, now refer to page 20 and I'm like, I'm on page 5. What? How do we skip 15 pages? I don't understand. Why are there 20 pages? What? Like, what is this? So I'm like, just be clear and concise. And if it's not clear and concise, maybe something's going wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe you've overcomplicated it somewhere. Can we simplify this a bit more?
Yeah, that's a really good point. So something that I struggle with documentation is like, how do you make sure it's up to date consistently as things change?
Yeah.
It's not an easy answer.
No. It probably is. That's it. I love the idea of a living document. Mm-hmm. No one keeps it alive. Because at some point, you're like, I've written it once, I'm done. But 7 months later, you're like, oh, this is really out of date. Mm-hmm. I've got to write it all over again. It's not something like you're resurrecting it. It's not alive. You're just resurrecting it now. But yeah, I guess we got to build something to solve that, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you have any resources or tips for ways that people could get better at writing documentation?
Resources or tips?
Like how would someone new think about the best ways to write good documentation? What would you recommend?
Do you know what I'd recommend? Getting someone else to read it. Like, it sounds simple, right? It sounds simple, but get someone else who's maybe not part of this project that you're working on, not familiar with this code base. Like, can you read over this documentation for me? And if they're like, huh? I was like, okay, the next person's not going to understand either.
Yeah.
Or let's get someone who's not close to that to read over it and see that, do you understand? Do you get the gist of it?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And if you do it, make them feel uncomfortable, do it when you see them reading it, just to see their facial expressions as well. Because I like to do that. I'm like, turn your camera on, I want to see your face.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? I'm like, I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I'm trying to make sure that what I've done is understandable. Because you might say to me, yeah, it's good, but if I see confusion on your face, I'm like, I've done something wrong.
Yeah, because we have a tendency to assume knowledge when we're writing documentation because we already know everything. Yeah. And so it's like we're writing it out. It's like, oh yeah, but yeah, I can skip this part, because this part's kind of obvious. And and so that's why it's, as you're saying, it's so important to go to someone who doesn't know, because they can be asking the questions like, oh, so why does that lead to this? And it's like, oh, I assume knowledge here because obviously I know why this leads to this. I didn't think to write it out because it's obvious.
You're not writing it for yourself.
Exactly.
That's the key. You're not writing it for you. You're writing it for someone else. You might be writing it for yourself, your future self. Your future self's not going to remember these irrational decisions you've made at 3 a.m. We're not. So you got to write for your future self and other people.
Yeah. And I can imagine my future self reading some documentation that I wrote and being like, who wrote this awful documentation that makes no sense? And it's like, oh, it was me.
Exactly. I mean, I was looking at the intro to BDD slides that I wrote several years ago, and I was like, who wrote this terrible Java? I'm like, oh my God, it's terrible. I'm like, I showed this to people and no one said anything to me? Like, wow.
Okay, another question is like, not everything you build will always require documentation. So at what point, you think it does?
No.
Okay.
Not everything.
At what point does it become necessary for you to write documentation? Like, when is it important enough for me to then add that to part of this task that I need to write to someone else how to use this thing?
When it's a user-facing thing.
Okay.
Because I've had times when, do Jessie, I'm not picking on you, I promise. But I'm plugging into an API. Because I've built a bunch of back ends for front ends. And I'm not touching the client side bit, but I'm creating like a little intermediate API that's going to connect to all these other APIs and that sort of thing. And I've read the documentation. I'm like, okay, I know how to use this. And then what I'm being returned is something completely different. I'm like, huh? I'm like, this is not what I was expecting. Now I've got to change my implementation because you've broken the contract. And I love that, we use the word contract really loosely. Like, oh yeah, this is the API contract, but really I'm going to give you something else. I'm like, it's a contract, bruv. I was expecting this.
Stick to the contract.
And I implemented my functionality based on your contract, and now you changed it, and now I've got to change my implementation. And everyone's asking me why it's taking me 2 months to build this. So I'm being held accountable because you gave me incorrect documentation. And then everyone's like, why is it taking you so long? So I'm like, I have to understand this API by calling every single endpoint to see what I'm getting back. I don't even know what parameters to pass to it. I don't know.
Yeah.
No, that's important. That's important. Okay, I need to be stricter with my contracts.
But things like that, like the contract bit, you can automate so we know what parameters to pass in, what it's going to be returning. I don't need to know the details of it. It's abstract that for me. Like, I don't need to know what's going on in the function body. Not my problem. That's your problem, not mine, sort of thing. But what are you giving me? What do I need to give you to get something back? And what are you giving me back?
Yeah, it's important.
I promise, Jessie, I'm not picking on you.
No, I need to hear it. I want to be a good developer, and I want to be someone that provides.
You already are a good developer, Jessie.
Amazing developer.
All right, I think that's a wrap.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, do you want to freestyle?
Do you want to do that? Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to add?
Congratulations on your awards.
Oh,
I should have said that. All right, so at the time of this recording, myself, Jessie and Tanya all won awards with makers. So me and Jessie won the Power List Awards. So we won of 22 of 20 women.
in software Power List
Awards. The
like,
women in software Power List. Me and Jessie were 2 of 20 winners to win that. And Tanya, you are one of the you were one of 5 people to win the Changemakers List of Makers as well.
Yep. Exciting.
Woo! We're award-winning software engineers and an award-winning co-CTO. What a way to end the episode. Right. Okay. Well, thanks for plugging that. But how can we stay in contact with what you're doing, what you're working on? And do you have any exciting projects coming up soon?
Exciting projects, of course. Listen, I've got 1,000 ideas. My GitHub is my repository of dreams, I like to call it. Like, if I've got an idea, I'm like, create that repo right now. I go back, I'm like, what is this again? Because I will always write down it's actually always in the README.
Documentation.
It's the documentation. It's the idea. I'll put the idea in the README. I'm like, I will forget you. And I can't go back every few months. I'm like, oh yeah, let me see this list of random repos. I'm like, I was going to build this thing.
That's such a good idea.
Let's go on her GitHub and store the ideas.
Oh, no, they're all private.
I wasn't going to do that anyway.
So exciting projects is I want to build a creative hub. So I'm somewhat of a creative person. My best friend is an amazing artist and she wants to eventually quit her day job and be a full-time painter. And I'm like, do it. And she's like, but studio is expensive. I'm like, hello, technology is a thing. Why do you have to do things in person? The internet is your best friend. Oh, this doesn't exist, Tanya. And I'm like, I'm going to make it exist.
Ooh.
I'm going to make it for you. And she's like, what? I'm like, I'm like, give me some time. I will make this for you. I'm like, what do you want? Exhibition, studio space. What is it that you need? I want to make this for you. And she's like, yeah, on exhibitions, and I also want, collaboration. I'm like, I deal with community all day, every day. Like, yeah, cool, got that bit. And then speaking to my other creative friends, and I remember going to a gig a few months ago, and it was empty in there because we were still in lockdown. We were coming out of lockdown, And I was like, this will be an amazing like online immersive experience. And I was speaking to the organizer and he's like, it doesn't exist, we can't make this happen. And I'm like, I'm going to make this happen.
Yes.
I'm going to make this happen. I'm like, give me some time. I will make this happen.
Very cool. TBC when that will be released. But we'll put it in the show notes whenever that is. Maybe in 2023. I'll take the show notes.
Exactly. But she finally did it.
Amazing. And how can people find you? Like, what are your socials?
So I'm on Instagram sometimes. Not often, but I'm there. And Twitter as Hey Tan Hey. I'm rebuilding that website of mine as I redo it every few months. And you can find me at tanyapowell.dev and also tanyapowell.io when I finally do that redirect. It's on my list to do.
Is it in the repos? Amazing.
There's a couple of live streams of me starting to do it as well.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah.
I was just tuned in. Yeah. It was so entertaining.
What, when I'm just getting distracted? One of the former Black college students like, I'm going to come into the chat and just purposely distract you. I'm like, please don't, because you know I'm really easily distracted. And she's just like, I like your jumper. I'm like, oh, no, my jumper. I went off on my jumper. And she's like, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot I'm supposed to be.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on to the Glowing in Tech podcast. Thank you so much for watching this week's episode of the Glowing in Tech podcast. We hope that you enjoyed it. So next week we have a special guest, and to find out who that is, follow us on socials at Glowing in Tech on Instagram, Twitter, and now TikTok. See you there.